Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/slash Tales from Tech Support. In today's episode, the case of the missing grades. Dear old dad and the external drive. I thought you knew what you were doing. I take that back. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. The case of the missing grades. Long, but dramatically shortened from my first draft. Characters. Protagonist, myself. Biology faculty at a small college. Tinkerer with technology. Local repository of knowledge about how to use our systems for teaching. IT only keeps them alive. Antagonist, the Learning Management System, LMS. A sprawling beast of a system which holds electronic textbooks, online assignments, and a gradebook with a number of useful auto-calculating features. All other flavors of tagonist will be named as they appear. It's midterms. While midterms lack the desperation of finals, they are still awful in their own way, mostly in that students are still on campus when the grades come out and can come into your office and complain personally. I've been troubleshooting students all day, which is a lot like tech support in many ways, although you're not allowed to re-image students and start fresh. Unfortunately, when instructed to turn their brains off and back on again, many students also reveal that they have no on state. I look up as another shape darkens my doorway. It's Natasha. Natasha is my advisee, is doing well in my class, and who thinks, against all logic and reason, that I am kind and helpful. She is, thankfully, probably not here to challenge her grade on the basis of I don't like it. Dr. Mustelid, she says, a note of panic in her voice, I'm failing English. Apparently my instructions that all serious issues are to begin with, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope, are being ignored. I begin debugging. Did you miss any assignments? No. Did you fail any major assignments? No. Look, here are my grades. I have all A's and BS on my assignments, but my course average is an F. English is my second language, I don't know if I can get straight as to improve this. Now, it's important to know two things. First, Natasha is quite bright. BS are her idea of a bad grade. Second, Natasha is very good looking. Many people see her and figure that she must have dumped so many points into charisma at character creation that she has none left over for intelligence, and talk to her like some ditzy airhead. Unfortunately, she's internalized that view of herself. This means that she assumes that this grade is her fault, and that she must work harder. I, on the other hand, understand that averaging scores over 80 and getting an average under 60 is a violation of the basic mathematical underpinnings of the universe. I do my due diligence. I get her to show me the actual grades in the gradebook. She is correct. Every assignment has a grade over 80%, many over 90%. Her course average is 43%. The LMS is pretty strict about what you can make it do. Pretty much you can control four things: the assignment grade, the assignment group, the assignment weight. Groups can also be weighted, allowing for some fairly complex nested group schemes, and whether any low elements of any group are dropped. However, the LMS does the averaging. I've seen people manage to give students straight zeros by accidentally assigning 0 as the universal weight, but no amount of weighting and dropping will get grades that are entered as 80 to average to 43. The situation is so insane that I actually check for deliberate sabotage. You can, as an instructor, hide grades. What if someone were to assign a secret assignment, give it a high weight, assign students zeros, and hide it? Well, in most gradebooks that might work at midterm, since not all assignments, and their weights, are necessarily displayed, but Natasha's instructor has actually put together the entire semester's gradebook in advance. He also isn't using groups, and so I can tally every assignment weight individually. It all adds up. There are no hidden grades. I poke around some more. This is very, very strange. Skip forward 20 minutes. I'm sitting in Bob's office. Bob is a grizzled veteran of the academic trenches, the sort of supervisor you want, who remembers when the fecal material was dropping on him and tries to shield his people from it. He's a friend and also the supervisor for the English faculty. We have exchanged the usual pleasantries, and it's time to get to the reason I'm here. So, I'm going to hazard that Dr. Luddite, Natasha's English professor, failed his whole class this midterm. Bob raises one eyebrow slightly. He did. And how do you know that? Unlike some of my colleagues, Bob doesn't believe that running apt-get update equals hacking, but it's hard to shake the impression that maybe I have means of finding things out that aren't entirely above board. You live, you learn never to admit that you actually can pick that file cabinet lock. Student complaint. Which led me to figuring out why. At least, I'm pretty sure. That's why I'm here. Bob does trust my technical expertise, and that I'm on the side of good and right. He also knows Dr. Luddite. Idiocy, he asks. Often, in non-academic circles, people assume that a work environment full of people with PhDs does not have the persistent idiocy problem that infects the rest of the globe. The reality is that getting a PhD, while it is hard mental labor, is extremely specialized. For some people, that's just sort of the end. The hard drive is full now. And, unfortunately for some, it's probably now full of the measurements of average lizard leg diameters or orthographic variations in Middle Kingdom hieroglyphics, and not how do I start Outlook. No, I say. Even an idiot would notice this. It may be idiot sabotage, but it's beyond mere stupidity. You may not have heard of idiot sabotage, but if you're a regular on TFTS, you've encountered it. A user is asked to do something on the computer, say, submit grades. They do not want to. They do it poorly, through laziness or incompetence. They know it's wrong but submit the results anyway. They then blame the process for the resulting mess in the hopes that they can return to the old ways. I could have calculated these grades correctly on my abacus, but you made me use this devil box. Bob ponders. I tend to agree. But I need to know how this happened so I can undo it. You have access to Dr. Luddite's LMS pages, right? Bob does. He brings up the offending class. Okay, click there, now the second item. Now a question. What happens when you assign students some sort of assignment with a due date, the due date passes, and a student has not submitted anything? What grade does the LMS give them? Bob frowns. This is a sore point for us all. An empty. An empty, unlike a zero, simply doesn't get averaged into anything. The student has now been given a free pass, and professors must manually go through and zero out non-submissions. What if I told you that the checkbox right there, which Dr. Luddite has checked, fixes this behavior? Sounds good, Bob says. It does sound good. But there's a catch, it doesn't do this per assignment. It just globally turns all empties into zeros. There are no empty grades anymore. Bob's face contorts in horror as I say this. So you know how Dr. Luddite set up his entire grade book at the beginning of the semester? I continue. And what should the grade be for an assignment that hasn't been given yet? Bob sighs deeply. An empty grade. He presses a hand to his head as if trying to ward off a headache. Oh, this is going to be so much paperwork. Dear old Dad and the external drive. Hello TFTS, long time no see. I know it's been ages since I've been here, but this just happened, and I've got to share it. So here it is, a nice hot day, and I'm chilling in my air-conditioned house, setting up my shiny new mechanical keyboard and gaming mouse, when my dear old dad whines from the next room. My external hard drive isn't showing up. I tell my computer to not restart to finish installing drivers for the mouse, thank you very much, and holler back. Did you plug it in? Is the USB plug all the way in? Is the power light on? Is the disk spinning? See, some months ago, dear old dad complained that his old 200 gigabytes drive that he's had for years was filling up, and he wanted a new one with more space. I advised him to do what I did and buy a 1 terabyte, 3.5-inch drive and slap it in an external enclosure. Boom, all the space you need. I told him what to get, he did exactly that, and I hadn't heard anything else about it until he whined about it not showing up. His computer is 10 years old and somehow still alive. The damn thing has outlived my old gaming PC, which is still alive, but its performance deteriorated to the point I quit using it and built a new one last summer. His computer is so bad that he wants my old one, because it still runs better, despite the fact that games like Chasm suffer from old-school NES-type slowdown on it. I actually found and fixed the reason for that, but he doesn't know that. Yeah, his computer is crap. Anyway, suspecting that the aforementioned crap computer is why his drive isn't showing up dying USB ports, Windows being stupid, etc., I tell him to eject the drive and bring it to me. If my shiny new, well, not quite new, but new enough computer has a problem, then there is 100% an issue with the drive. I plug everything in, power it up, the drive spins up, and nothing happens. No external drive pops up in this PC. Huh. I try multiple USB ports. Nothing. Weird. I check Device Manager. There it is. DMC something there, but isn't quite sure what it is. I finally open Disk Management. There is my internal drive with its healthy partitions, and below that is a drive that is not initialized. Oh crap. Initializing the disk won't erase data, but reformatting certainly will. I do some Google foo to see if I have any other options, and everything comes back to reformat the disk, which I can't do, because I don't know what all he's saved on the disk already. The only other thing I can find is expensive data recovery options, and screw that. This is why I have 2 external drives for myself. Anyway, after 20 or so minutes, I call him in and ask if there is anything on this disk that absolutely cannot be replaced, because the only option is to reformat. He blinks at me. There's nothing on the disk. There won't be, after I reformat it. No, I never put anything on it. It was never used. I was trying to use it when it didn't show up. I let out a what, so flat it was practically 2D. He walks out of the room then, and my brain finally catches up to itself. You mean to tell me that you've had this thing for months, and you've never attempted to use it yet? Oh, I never got around to it. Is it screwed up really bad? I nearly slam my head down on my new keyboard. It's fine. It's not showing up because it was never formatted. You have to format new disks before you can use them. Oh, it didn't tell me that. No, because you're supposed to read the instructions, which will tell you to do that. Or you could have just told me at the beginning, and I could have done it on your computer, and saved myself the trouble. I initialize and format the disk, and bam. There it is, DOD's drive, yay. I eject it, unplug everything, and hand it to him. Make sure you eject it before you unplug it. I won't save you if you corrupt your files. Don't jostle it while it's spinning either. You're screwed if you head crash it. He promptly takes it to his own computer and sits it on his desk and wanders off to do something else. I shut my door and huddle down with my hardware and grumble about computer illiterates that remain so despite using computers for years. I thought you knew what you were doing. I take that back. Happened during the mid-2000s, during my campus days. It's also the only incident from those days worth telling. My school is funded by an extremely wealthy Chinese conglomerate, so we enjoyed lots of benefits that other campuses do not get. One such perk was that students are allowed to work certain jobs within the campus during their free time for a rather high hourly allowance, subject to a cap per week and with the undertaking that it must not affect our studies or grades, and I landed one such job in tech support. During a slow day, a fellow student came into the support office for help. His laptop had Vista and 2 gigabytes of memory. Remember, 2 gigabytes of memory in a laptop during those times was a lot, but he downgraded it to XP and bumped the memory up to 3 gigabytes for even greater performance. XP ought to fly on such a machine, but according to the guy, XP has slowed down so much that it was taking more than 15 minutes for the desktop to respond to user input from a cold boot. At the same time, he needs to install some accountancy software for an upcoming tutorial. I set him up on one of the tables and had him turn on the laptop. This fellow wasn't kidding. XP booted to a black screen and white cursor, and stayed like that for at least 10 minutes before it finally started drawing the desktop elements one by one, which includes a system tray that has more than 2 rows of icons, and a desktop filled to the brim with all manner of shortcuts, files, installers and whatnots. It was almost 30 minutes by the time the start menu would respond to a mouse click, and even then, the system would randomly freeze for a while doing basic things like accessing Control Panel or the Add Remove Wizard. msconfig showed hundreds of active startup items that I gave up going through the list as soon as I saw it. And forget about software installation. The first software installer took almost 5 minutes just to start, and it eventually hung when I was specifying a custom installation path at the student's request. Clearly, the performance issues need to be solved before we even talk about software installation. However, we also have a rule that no support staff is allowed to delete anything on the user's laptop, and since this fellow was able to install XP and upgrade his memory, I assumed we were on similar levels. So I told him to enter safe mode, identity everything he does not need, uninstall them, then come back to us for the software installation, or use msconfig to disable enough startup items if uninstallation is not possible. He asked what safe mode was, so I demonstrated it to him by rebooting the laptop, which took another eternity, mashing F8 and selecting the safe mode option. He was really impressed by how the safe mode desktop showed up instantly, and how fast everything was in safe mode, collected the laptop and said that he will come back once he had removed all the useless stuff. He came back 2 days later and said that everything is ready for software installation. Guided him to a table and was about to insert the Ethernet cable. Our software installers are hosted in a separate network accessible only within the support office, when I noticed that he was booted into safe mode. I pointed this out to him, and his answer is forever burnt in my mind. Yeah, I know. I could not decide what to uninstall, so I decided to just boot into safe mode from now on to do my stuff. Don't worry, I selected safe mode with networking for this. Not wishing to argue, I went ahead with the installation. In safe mode. Install completed. I was amazed it even worked, because Windows disables the installer service in safe mode, tested the applications which actually worked, he packed up and left, and I signed off on the install form. I never saw this guy again in the support office again for the rest of my student life, but I cannot help wondering if this guy did the entirety of his accountancy course in safe mode, and if he is still booting his new Windows 10 laptops and computers into safe mode even to this day.